Looking at all the YanSim inspired games will be fun, I said. There can't be that many, I said. Quarantine can do weird things to people. It's no secret that Yandere Simulator has been baking in the oven for quite a while now. It isn't too surprising that there are people who think they can do justice to the premise, which currently doesn't seem to be being used to its full potential by Yandere dev. Out of boredom, I decided to look into these YanSim inspired games. I really didn't expect to find too many of them, but well, there's enough to make a whole video about them if that's an indication of anything. I will be listing the games from order of when they were announced, as many of them never made it too far into development before being cancelled. One more thing before we begin, please do not send hate towards the developers of these games. This video is just meant to be a bare bones history of YanSim inspired games, not a call out piece or anything like that. Now, I hope you enjoy. Yandere School, developed by Tea and Cake Games, was originally announced as a self-proclaimed unofficial Android spin-off of Yandere Simulator in 2015. The game eventually ended up adopting its own identity and released on Steam and the App Store in September of 2017. As described on the game's Steam page, Akari Furutaka is an ordinary Yandere schoolgirl, who fell in love with a guy named Makio, but is too shy to confess her feelings. At the same time, it turns out that a new girl classmate and an exchange student have their eyes on him too, and out of nowhere his fiancée appears. Even the school baseball team is competing for his attention. The fight for love will go at any cost. If that description didn't convince you, then surely their description of the game's features will have you pulling out your wallet in excitement. The game really doesn't have all that much depth to speak of. The main gameplay loop consists of you encountering an obstacle between Akari and Makio, you killing that obstacle, burying the body, going on a date with Makio, going through a nightmare segment. Rinse and repeat for 5 levels. Makio never even questions where these girls have gone. There's only enough content to squeeze, at most, maybe 2 hours of gameplay out of this very short game. If you've come here for smart gameplay or a great love story, then it's best to pack your bags and look elsewhere. Yandere School's dialogue can be a bit, well.
Sono-senpai?
Nani, what's up, Akari-chan?
However, the odd dialogue isn't too much of a surprise considering the fact Tea and Cake Games is a Russian-based company located in Ukraine. It would have been wise of them to hire proofreaders from countries housing native English speakers. But are we really expecting much from a game made to quickly cash in on the then rising popularity of Yandere Simulator? There isn't much of note about this YanSim inspired game other than the fact it was the first major one of its kind. It was able to obtain mild popularity with notable YanSim players Lawrence Side, Cub Scouts, and Cory X Kenshin each making successful videos on the game. But in the long run, Yandere School won't be remembered for being anything impressive. At the end of the day, its creation was motivated by a want to quickly cash in on the success of Yandere Simulator before the hype died down, and I suppose, in that respect, they accomplished their goal splendidly. For this next entry, I'll admit that I'm partially unsure of whether or not this was inspired by YanSim. It may just be an unfortunate case of having a similar idea around the same time as a more popular project. Daigaku Gurashi, originally known as Shiro's High School Crisis Impact and then
Gurashi. Still don't know if I'm saying that right.
Before finally landing on its current name, is quote, an anime-themed social simulator that includes making friends, enemies, dating, gossiping, managing your time, and bullying. Yami Toast, the game's developer, initially began development of the game in November of 2015 with their first official video coming out in April of 2016. Out of all the YanSim inspired games on this list, Daigaku Gurashi takes the cake for ambition. Yami Toast is currently trying to make his game into a dynamic sandbox where you can just live your life as your own customized character in an odd anime-themed world. To my knowledge, the game won't have any endings and will be a continuous experience with randomly generated students. The amount of time taken to create this game has almost been as long as Yandere Sim. However, when you take into consideration what this developer is trying to do, how much they've gotten done, and the fact their funds are way lower than Yandev's, then the development time makes sense and can be forgiven. The game includes features such as NPCs all developing different opinions of you rather than one unified view based off of a single reputation bar, characters changing their manner of speech depending on who they're friends with, stat bars for things like depression and flirtiness, the option to skip school to sleep the day away or go out on the town, the ability to purposely fall on people or slide kick them into oblivion, extensive character customization options, etc. The game aims for an absurdist atmosphere and can be considered the anime version of an MDK game. The game really commits to this tone with the charmingly Play-Doh looking character models, exaggerated Japanese voice bites, and dialogue that was obviously fun to write. The game is still currently in development with updates being posted every 3 to 5 weeks. There isn't a projected full release window, but Yami Toast currently considers the game to be 53% complete. Like with Yandere School, a few Yandere Simulator players produce successful Daigaku Gurashi Let's Plays, but the large amount of views on said videos doesn't seem to have had much effect on the game's popularity. The dev's channel still only receives modest, yet consistent traffic. The game in its current state isn't exactly amazing, however. I believe Daigaku Gurashi might have the best chance of surviving the longest out of all the YanSim inspired games for its quirkiness and replayability. I guess only time will tell. In the meantime, we can always depend on Sirloin of Beef and Latoria Clayton to keep the game alive. Love Me was born as a YanSim fix game. That is, they plan to use the basic premise and make it better. The game found its origins around July of 2016 on the site Kiwi Farms on a Yandere Simulator board. With users Vertex Windy and Fat Cat leading the charge, a handful of Kiwis gathered together to form Starcrossed Team. Love Me's official Tumblr described the game as a game where you play as Miki Kiwi, a 20-year-old young woman who just moved into a university preparatory school where she meets Nori Tomio and develops a crush on him. However, it seems like she's not the only one and she will have to eliminate any competition in the span of 10 weeks right before the school's festival where she wants to confess her love. The setting was to be in a Japanese/Western style international university to, I assume, avoid suffering under the same type of controversy Yandev has experienced regarding his featuring of minors in YanSim. The game originally had a projected release of sometime in late 2017, however the time frame came and went without much fanfare. While a playable demo was never released, the devs regularly answered fan questions while also posting small teaser images and videos. From what little information was released over the game's development, it seems as though the gameplay was generally going to be similar to YanSim. There were differences, of course. Some were making the player figure out who their weekly rival would be rather than already knowing before the game's release, having more than 90 students populate the school, and the absence of a little sister rival. The lack of concrete knowledge on what Starcrossed Team had planned puts a bit of a damper on this section of the video. But I also respect the fact the devs weren't spewing their guts and ruining any surprises. While the project had quite a bit of support, the game also experienced its fair share of controversy and doubt. Apparently some Kiwis weren't exactly fond of Love Me, but I wasn't really able to find post of them speaking too negatively about the game. It's possible some users may have been a bit skeptical since most of the development blog was just filled with asks. Some asks like these questioning the character's gender, sexual, and racial identity may have been seen as off-putting to this particular crowd. To be fair though, using identity markers to advertise always ends well.
Does that mean that people who are queer will be able to see a queer character at some point in this film?
I will say I'm giving away nothing about what happens in the movie, but I did just say what I just said.
On Tumblr, minor outrage over the developer's origins as Kiwi users was also causing a bit of a stir. It's unknown if this ever contributed to the resulting internal problems that would eventually plague the team. However, it didn't seem to faze them much. Progress looked to be slow, but steady until August of 2018 when it was announced development of the game would be put on hiatus for an indeterminate amount of time. Star-Crossed Team would later re-emerge almost a whole year later in May of 2019 with Love Me being transformed into a sprite-based game. This was probably when internal issues among the devs reached a breaking point resulting in a lowering of the scope of the game. After the May update, the team continued working on Love Me until November of 2019. In November, the new lead, Charmy, who at some unknown point replaced Windy, announced the game would be frozen rather than outright cancelled in order to leave the project open for continuation if any of the remaining members of the dev team ever want to revive the game. Who knows if this is for sure the end of Love Me's journey, but things aren't looking all too hopeful for it considering the fact Star-Crossed Team's final announcement is now a year old. The State of Limerence, previously known as Limerence, began development in September of 2016 as another attempt at a Yanfix game, this time made by Tumblr users who'd call themselves Team Lovebite. The overall story synopsis was as followed. The day Momika Himura met Sasaki Hasegawa, she knew she had fallen in love. It was so easy to fall for him, all the little things piling up inside her and leaving her warm. Cute and funny, a wicked grin and the kindest eyes, her heart couldn't take it. Telling him directly was all but impossible with that lump in her throat, but if she were just close enough to see him, to watch him smile, maybe that would be enough. But while love may be blind, Momika certainly was not. Sasaki Hasegawa, the bully and delinquent, was a far more visible character to others than the sweet boy she saw in him. His good looks and charisma only went so far, and many experienced firsthand just how cruel he and his friends could be. Teasing, pranks, nasty jokes, it didn't stop there. They all could be terrors, and everyone knew it. But why would she believe otherwise? Why did he pull back when the rest would push forwards? Was she really just mistaken? She had to know more. The rumors could be true, but how true? That warm voice, their tiny conversations, the gentle way he put her at ease, those were real. They were facts. And that he was only cruel when others were, that he only participated, that was a fact, too. Something needed to be done. Sasaki needed help. He was a good person, straying off the path, who just needed someone to look out for him, to guide him, to keep him uncorrupted. Love could change him. Her love could change him. And their love, together, will be perfect, despite it all. The State of Limerence was envisioned as a Yandere game where the Yandere was unwilling to kill, but very much willing to destroy the lives of her rivals via social sabotage. Each of the 9 planned rivals would have one dove and hawk elimination method which you would then choose between after playing through an info gathering stage. The dove eliminations would be peaceful, while the hawk eliminations would require you to play mind games with your victims. Depending on how you dealt with your rivals, you would have then gotten one of 3 endings. It can be inferred that the game would play something like a 3D point-and-click game based off of the information provided by the developers and their using Life is Strange as a comparison. It is unknown if Team Lovebite themselves ever conceived a core gameplay loop. The first mention of any gameplay-related programming actually taking place was in May of 2018, nearly 2 years after the State of Limerence's initial announcement. Something that was considered a major selling point of the game was its inclusivity. As you'd guess from something originating from Tumblr, the game was planned to include LGBT+ themes, use characters from a variety of cultural backgrounds, and dive into issues concerning mental health. The direction they planned to lead the game in led to high praise from some and cold reception from others, much like their predecessor, Love Me. Although the State of Limerence is a case of yet another failed YanSim inspired game, Team Lovebite is still quite active today. A few months after Limerence was cancelled in April of 2019, Team Lovebite announced their new game, Napuria. Napuria is being developed as a social farming sim along the lines of Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon. As the only team to survive after the failure of their project, I wish the best for Team Lovebite in this new endeavor of theirs. Hiwata no Nadoko was first revealed to the world sometime in 2016 as a YanSim mod under the name Yandere Simulator. After receiving favorable feedback, the creators turned the mod into a standalone project and became the development team Reparation Games. Hiwata no Nadoko's plot is described as followed in the game's official design document. Reika Hinode was Yamamura Academy's sweetheart. She was the president of the Light Music Club, a high-achieving student, and was very popular with students and teachers alike. Reika wasn't always the kindest to her fellow students, but because she was thought so highly of, she was able to get away with most things. That changed when Tomiko Sonohara transferred to school. The daughter of the new school board president was used to being with the in crowd, but when Reika rejected her, Tomiko destroyed her reputation, with the help of Aiko Shibata and others whom Reika had torn down herself in the past. Reika went from being the most popular girl in school to being the bottom of the barrel. This did a number on her, ultimately leading to her plot of revenge. She can choose one of three ways to eliminate her tormentors. While this wouldn't mean friendship, she can find common ground and make peace with them. Or, she can unlock their biggest secrets to sabotage their reputation. Or, she can simply take them out lethally. In any case, she only has as long as she has the will to. Basically, it was the high school version of Kill Bill. Kidding, kidding. Aside from small glimpses of character designs and gameplay snippets of Reika walking around, not much was shown in their progress reports. Hiwata no Nadoko was initially planned to be out by Q4 of 2019. Coincidentally, the last time Reparation Games ever put out something was on Twitter in October of 2019. After that they went radio silent and haven't officially cancelled the game or reassured fans of its continual existence. The fact this project fell through and died with little fanfare isn't too surprising when you consider the fact most of the team apparently consisted of students working on the game during their spare time. On top of that, it sounds like the project also experienced managerial problems. By their February 2019 progress report, their final report to date, one of Reparation Games' representatives excitedly reveals the fact the project has finally found an official head of development. This would be great news if they hadn't already been in their third year of development. Furthermore, talk of members leaving the team show up as early as the very first progress report. It could even be said this was a problem before the project was official, as their previous lead coder, KGFTBZ, remember this name for later, had left the team and taken previously story important characters he had created with him. With cracks appearing so early in development, it would have been prudent for them to try scaling back the project and look for people who could actually commit rather than going bigger and bolder on such a shaky foundation. An example of them biting off more than they could chew is what they plan to do with the whole "your actions have consequences" idea. How you deal with the target would affect the subsequent target's storyline, causing a branching of the narrative. Similarly, there were plans to make the entire student body, which was initially planned to include just over 100 unique students before bumping the number up to 180, interactable with your conversations, affecting their opinion of you and once again affecting gameplay. Some people might be thinking, hold it, didn't you praise Daigaku Gurashi for doing essentially the same thing? To which you are right. The difference between what Reparation Games and Yami Toast planned, however, is the fact Daigaku only has 13 students in the game. A far smaller pool than what was planned for Hiwata no Nadoko. The level of complexity they were going for was admirable, but unreasonable, and it's no surprise we never got to actually see any examples of this in action. I really do believe the core members were genuinely passionate about making Hiwata no Nadoko a reality, but passion alone can only take you so far. Yuka Simulator was a YanSim-inspired project that started development sometime in 2017. The game was being made by a developer by the name of Blue Pie or Yuka Developer. Something to remember when checking this game out is that the dev was probably just a child when they made it. Not much is known about the game as it didn't attract too much attention during its short development time, and the dev since completely erased all existence of the game off the internet. I did manage to find this build from July of 2017 though. I don't know what the premise of the game was going to be, but there's something a bit funny about just running around kicking random schoolgirls. The only things of note were that Bo and Gamer, a name that'll appear again later, seemed to have been a playtester for the game, and HGTBD, a notable YanSim modeler who will also pop up again later, produced the model used for the main character. Well, on to the next game. Seasons of Love was a YanSim-inspired game, but I see it as technically being yet another YanSim fix game. The lead designer explained, quote, "It will just be Yandere themed. We will get rid of shitty mechanics like panty shots, get rid of incest and pedophiles blah blah, and express their wish to be seen as their own game on their website. What leads me to calling it a type of Yan-fix game is the past of said developer. The original lead dev, going by the name New Yandere Dev, was apparently able to recreate YanSim in an hour. There are links to the video in question, so I believe it actually existed. However, it's said that the video was taken down after a horde of angry YanSim fans mass flagged the video. After this incident, New Yandere Dev managed to pull a team together to form Takekuma Studio and began working on Seasons of Love in February of 2017. I think it's reasonable to assume the game would generally be another YanSim, but better concept considering its origin story and the fact the lead bothered to name himself New Yandere Dev. Similar to Love Me, not much is known about how the game would actually play out. It's possible posts discussing the gameplay and story were made, but that information is now inaccessible after the cleansing of their social media pages. The most we know for certain comes from their Tumblr's FAQ, which somehow managed to survive, and by word of mouth from people previously following the project. According to the FAQ, they had tentatively planned to include 5 rivals in the game, with each one taking an entire season to eliminate. Story-wise, this comment from a Kiwi user implies the overall narrative of the game was to be about a girl fighting off other girls in order to keep her boyfriend faithful. The remaining available promotional art works as evidence to back up this claim, as the main characters look to already be in a relationship. Official development of the game seemed to be in full swing for a few months. This wouldn't last long though, as their Twitter shows not even a year into development they suddenly disappeared. There's an almost year-long gap between their most recent post from 2018 and second most recent post from 2017. Looking around a bit led me to discovering most people didn't know where the team had gone, meaning the now wiped Tumblr and YouTube pages weren't receiving updates either. During that year-long gap, one Kiwi Farms user who assumably was a part of Takekuma Studio explained, quote, "Seasons of Love failed due to very similar circumstances as YanSim. The difference being that Eva is still standing because he has a fan base and a stable income. The New Yandere Dev just wanted the credit and wasn't really programming. There were a lot of control freaks incidents. The artists were left in the dark and the writing was abysmal. Overall, it was just a project made because a cocky guy wanted to become famous by rehashing someone else's idea but acting exactly like the original developer." The last that anyone's heard from Takekuma Studio regarding Seasons of Love came in December of 2018 on Twitter, where they admitted that the game had indeed been cancelled, but was once again in development. It's been around a year and a half since those posts were made. Watashi no Mono is probably the most popular entry on this list. The game was born as a YanSim fan game, at the time called Yandere Simulator, in October of 2017 by Epic Meal Dev. The story of Watashi no Mono is as follows. Uchikina and Yudo have been a couple for a long time. One day, while Yudo was practicing sports after school, Uchikina found his phone and discovered text messages to and from another girl named Ayaka Hana. The messages had blatant signals of an affair. Of course, Uchikina couldn't let this slide. She thought to herself for a long time. She could easily just break up with Yudo, but she didn't want to. She wanted Yuto all to herself, but how will she do it? A lot of disgruntled fans were extremely optimistic about the game as it started to gain traction around the time Yandere was embroiled in a large amount of controversy. Additionally, Epic Meal was able to progress with his game in a much shorter time than Yandere. Epic Meal was basically what X-fans expected Yandere to be like, as he could not only code, but also made his own models, music, and animations. Of course, he didn't and couldn't do everything by himself. But the fact he had the ability to dabble in a bit of everything made him seem like the second coming of Jesus to followers of Watashi no Mono. Another thing people liked was how he involved his community in the creation of his game with design contests for things like the school uniform and students. He also knew how to limit information revealed through devlogs and teasers, only showing general gameplay rather than over-explaining every mechanic and piece of lore. Don't get me wrong, he's not a god, but can you really blame people for putting him on a pedestal when he shows so much passion and dedication for a project he receives almost no profit from? As of 2019, the game has been announced as being on an indefinite hiatus. Epic Meal Dev cites quite a few reasons for why he's made this decision. Some of which include being uncomfortable with people using him to insult Yandere, a need for 3D modelers and composers in order to pick up the speed of development, and just a general want to improve himself educationally and spend more time with his family. It's understandable for him to shelve the project based off of the presented reasons. Seeing what looked to be a promising game be put on hold indefinitely sucks, but I respect his decision and wish him the best with whatever he does in the future. For now, let's not say farewell to the game, but instead leave off on a hopeful see you later. If Epic Meal Dev ever does return to the project, I hope that people will be able to put aside their dissatisfaction with Yandere Simulator and just acknowledge Watashi no Mono as its own standalone game. Oh, BTW, this isn't official. Developed by Yandere Mika, A Murder Story, aka Murder Simulator, was the first of two YanSim-inspired games to be unveiled in November of 2017. Only one trailer exists for the game. In said trailer we learn through a monologue by the main character, Komiko, that she's been bullied ever since forever for reasons unknown. The goal of the game is then implied, well, outright said to be getting revenge on Komiko's tormentors. But then the trailer ends with her saying I can't let her confess to him, making it seem like it would just be a straight up Yandere game. It's kinda confusing. The game itself was still in its infant stages when it was first announced, so there isn't too much to go into. The most interesting thing to happen to A Murder Story and its developer was to be involved in some small drama with Epic Meal Dev over stolen ideas and assets. The people behind the project, or at least supposedly involved, are also a bit fascinating as their names commonly found in the YanSim community. Other than that, A Murder Story was quickly cancelled assumedly the same year, obviously abandoning its 2018 release date. The second YanSim-inspired game announced in November of 2017 was Anime Life Simulator by semi-prominent YanSim community modder and former Hiwata no Nadoko coder, KGFTBZ. Anime Life Simulator is planned to be a highly customizable game where you can shape everything to be your ideal anime life. To be honest, I don't have much to say about this one. This is mostly just a hobby project for KGFTBZ to do in his spare time, and I hope he has fun doing so. The last video update was posted in May of 2019. Project Rai was the real first official YanSim-inspired game of 2018, having been announced July of that year. The origins of this game are somewhat of a mystery, and from what I could find, or I guess in this case couldn't find, the dev team has no official name. The only one working on the project who's been named is the lead developer, Red.
I'm the lead developer, Red.
For that reason, from now on I will refer to the team working on Project Rai as Red and the Pizza Boys. Information on the game's been kept under lock and key so far. The only things confirmed are the obvious facts that the project is a stealth social sim where you have to eliminate rivals competing for your love interest's affection. This time the main character goes by the name Yoshiko Kazumi and her love interest Ryu Ishigawa. Red hasn't updated the game's official YouTube channel since April of 2019. However, their Discord server is still very much active and they've resumed making regular blog posts on their official website as of January 2020. The game's apparently had a massive overhaul since the last time it was shown off, and Red along with the Pizza Boys are still hard at work. A new year means new ideas. Lovers of Forbidden Oak was the first YanSim inspired game on this list to be made in the form of a VN. The game was first announced in March of 2018. Before the developer unceremoniously went radio silent on March of 2018. The only information available about the game is this brief plot summary and the fact at least 6 rivals were planned to be in the game. Suicide for Him is a YanSim inspired game developed by Yandere Simulator and Daigaku Gurashi musician Next Tone. He first announced the game on his main channel in September of 2018. The official Suicide for Him YouTube channel uses the following description. You play as Akai Hoshi, a 19-year-old schoolgirl. Your younger brother, Fukoshi, has attended the same school as you since last semester. He's a complete outcast, and your task is to protect your brother from bullies who target him. A short demo, that uses an annoying horn sound effect every time you're spotted,
Shut your fucking mouth!
Is available to the public, but overall not much is known about the game. Suicide for Him had an expected release date of 2019, however, as of May 2020, the game looks to still be in development. Hey, remember HGTBD? Well, they've also decided to stick their hand in the YanSim inspired game pie. Along with their friend Chi Nami, the newly christened HG dev is currently developing Himawari Funsai. I assume the game started development sometime in October of 2019, as that's when the game's official YouTube channel was created, but I can't say for sure. The first official teaser trailer was released this May, and a synopsis of the story can be found in the description of Luxius, a friend of HG Dev's channel. There is a family called Akimura. There are 2 sisters, Nara Akimura and Haruna Akimura. Nara is 1 year older than Haruna. One day her father died, so now only her mother is alive with 2 kids. Nara is 13 and Haruna is 12. One day, Haruna and Nara's mother married a man named Takuzan Kenjin, director of the school that Nara and Haruna will study at in the future. Years passed and Takuzan gave a job in the library to his wife, Nara's mother. On a wonderful day, Nara entered the 3rd year of school and Haruna in the 2nd, until one night when Haruna disappeared. Everyone thinks she is dead, but there is not enough evidence. So before she disappeared, Haruna was receiving texts from someone named AK. There are 9 girls and a boy at school who have something in common. They like blackmail. This means that they are suspicious, which is why we must kill them, so that we can understand what happened to Haruna. This is only the first episode. Currently, the game is in a debug sandbox state and does not yet have a release date. This next project could also have been considered a Yanfix game in its conception. In February of 2020, Twitter user Falling Narwhals announced his intention to remaster Yandere Simulator. His announcement was generally met with positivity, and he quickly found fellow allies like AJVF1, also known as the Corrupted Dev, to help out with the project. The new team decided to name their YanSim remaster Heartbreak and use Corrupted Dev's Corrupted Studios as their team name. Development of the game was expected to take only a year and 5 months. Project Heartbreak, much like other YanSim-inspired games, eventually moved away from its origins as a remake and started developing into its own thing. The new story would be as followed. Hidden between an array of mountains lurks a happy little town called Shinkoya, and within this town is one of the most prestigious schools in the world, Kendai High School. Thanks to the immense wealth of its students, the town is a small yet bustling area where they can live out their childhood years. However, someone is trying to break that peace. You, or UF, have decided to eliminate those who stand in the way of being united with your one true love. The devs plan to feature 5 rivals, with each having 2 unique pacifist elimination methods on top of the pre-planned murder methods. The new main character, UF, had her model completed fairly quickly and things seemed to be on their way. In April, however, it was announced that Heartbreak project would be continuing on as a 2D visual novel. Along with this announcement was the reveal that the original developer, Falling Narwhals, was stepping down from his position and placing the project in users Daturadana and Inventory Edit's hands. It is unknown if Corrupted Dev also left the Heartbreak project or if Corrupted Studios can still be considered the game's producer. But I think it's safe to say they've since moved on, as all traces of Heartbreak have been removed from their channel. The change in leadership also led to a change of name from Heartbreak to Heartbreak for Eternity. So far this new project has a prequel visual novel available for the public to play. Demore Academy, made by YanSim YouTuber Ruben W., is another one of the newer YanSim-inspired games, having been announced April of this year. Because of its recent announcement, the amount of information released on the game is minuscule. What we do know so far is that the story is set somewhere in France, with the protagonist trying to get revenge on a group of 5 students who accidentally killed her sister in a car crash. Project LOVESTRUCK is the latest Yanfix game to date. This Yanfix game found its origins on Reddit among disgruntled ex-fans of Yandere Simulator. One such user, going by the name The Game Corner, suggested they band together to try their hand at making their own Yandere game. Project LOVESTRUCK was also announced in April like Demore Academy and is currently still in the conceptualization phase. This'll be the end of the list. However, I technically haven't shown off all the games I found. The ones I left out are, for the most part, just concepts I found while editing. I'm just going to put the rest in a small rapid fire section since it'd be a hassle to re-edit the entire video. Here we go. Random YanSim inspired game by JV5663. Sakura School by Spiralinks. Broken Depression Simulator by these guys. Project Charlotte by El Nadev. Star-Crossed by Pretty Ugly Little Liars. Stolen Love, Humiliation and Love in Japan, both by Vitalik. The Corrupted Child, Love of Insanity by Corrupted Dev. You've probably noticed by now that most games in the quote-unquote YanSim genre are likely to meet an unfortunate end one way or another. Why do these projects pop up and disappear at such a rapid pace, while Yandere Simulator thrives? I believe it's because a majority of the devs are going into this for the wrong reason and don't really consider the scope of the game they're trying to create. Most of the devs who try making a YanSim inspired game either really like the concept or are just doing it to spite Yandere dev. The people who do it because they like the concept are typically on the younger side or just don't have the necessary experience to take on such a big project. They use YanSim as a base template and then go from there, but if the base already has cracks in it, then the end results aren't too surprising. The ones trying to spite Yandev usually lose motivation as the idea itself isn't what's compelling them forward. As mentioned before, the amount of effort needed to make this concept work is monumental. It's inevitable they'd eventually realize the effort isn't worth it to one-up someone they already consider pathetic and subsequently drop their projects. What's ironic is that YanSim itself also started off as a spite project, and look at where that's gotten the developer. He's miserable and his reputation's in shambles. The only reason he still works on the game anymore is because of a mixture of stubbornness and having nothing else to lose at this point.
How's Tanya doing? She's good. Tanya works at a technology company doing some really cool, exciting stuff. And every now and then she contacts me and tells me like, hey, do you want to come get a job at this company I work for? And I think, I could leave Yandere Simulator behind and just move back to Los Angeles and live with my cousin and go to work at her cool company. And that would be a lot better than suffering every day. But I always decline and just keep working on Yandere Sim instead.
I have no doubt in my mind that more of these types of games will begin production in the future. Whether or not any of them will actually finish is unknown, but with so many arrows being let loose, at least one of them has to hit the mark, right? I hope this video was a fun watch or at least informative. If you know of any other YanSim inspired games I didn't talk about, or if I got a piece of information wrong, then please comment down below. Thank you for watching.